Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up, we're going to get into the latest news and rumors around the Silver and Black, but we're really going to focus on Josh Jacobs, Michael Mayer, and some of the roster moves that the Raiders made yesterday. If you don't follow me on social media, I put out a lot of these roster moves already. So if you don't know, well then, hey, always give me a follow on IG and on Twitter at MitchellRenz365. First one was Justin Herron. He ended up getting waived yesterday, which really is not a surprise. I am even surprised that this guy has made it on this roster as long as he has. When the Raiders ended up trading, what was it, a 6th-round pick for him last season. This was a McDaniels guy. This was a Ziegler dude. Couldn't stay healthy, and even when he was on the field, wasn't able to really show up. I think it speaks volumes that the Raiders were more willing to take on a chance with Brandon Parker than what they were for Justin Herron, but they ended up moving on from him. Another move that they ended up making was Jesper Horsted. They placed him on IR, and it's kind of a shitty situation for Horsted because he's really fought his way to get on that 53-man in this battle. You know, a few practice squad designations from time to time, but with him being placed on IR, and well, we'll get into the injury news here around Michael Mayer in a second. It made me wonder, what are the Raiders going to do at tight end? You have Cole Fotheringham, who got some run last week. And sure, you have Austin Hooper, but the way that this offense works is you need to have a few more tight ends to be able to go out there, and it's exactly what they did. They signed Zach Gentry off a practice squad here, and from a career standpoint, 49 targets, 39 grabs, 132 yards, no touchdowns. But, let's get one thing very, very straight here. The Raiders did not sign Zach Gentry for him to go out and catch footballs. The only reason why he was brought to this squad was a toughness and run blocking, pass blocking standpoint. I mean, he's a monster of a dude. He's 6'8", 265 pounds. He is a run blocking tight end. That is it. Somebody asked me, what's a good comparison that Raider fans might understand? Y'all remember Lee Smith? Lee Smith was the most basic white guy tight end you could ever find in an NFL team. He didn't do anything besides block. That's exactly what Gentry is going to do. And I actually talked to a source that's very close to Gentry and was like, give me a rundown of him. Said, hard worker, first guy in, last guy to leave. He's going to bring a Raider mentality. So what I want to know right now from all y'all, go down in the comments, give me your one-word reaction to the Raiders signing Gentry. And the reason why I always tell people to hit subscribe is because anybody can give you the breakdown of why a player was signed, right? But then to really go into the X's and O's, which is what we do here on today's show. So I'm going to give you my one-word reaction on why the Raiders signed Zach Gentry. But here's your opportunity to go down in the comments right now and give me your one-word reaction. My one-word reaction is toughness from what he's going to be able to bring to a football standpoint, what he's going to bring to the practice facility, and he's obviously going to add a little bit of depth, but his toughness is contagious according to a lot of players that have played with him in the past. The other one-word reaction that I could have is trouble, because it spells trouble. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'm worried with all this smoke going on around Michael Mayer, it might turn into a fire. If you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe it's because you're not subscribed to the Raiders Report. Man, we're bringing you Raiders content. Rain, shine, 365 days a year. And you know what? In 2024, I'm actually going to make a video 366 days out of the year. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. That way, you never miss anything going on around the Las Vegas Raiders. So as it stands right now, the Raiders tight end depth chart, with Gentry now being the tight end 3 here, I'm curious to see if they promote Cole Fotheringham again to the active roster for this upcoming week. But with Michael Mayer dealing with a toe injury, Austin Hooper, it's going to be his main show yet again. He had over 50 snaps last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, and when the season started, I actually had high hopes that Hooper was going to be able to go out there and be a reliable tight end 1 and give Michael Mayer some time. But as the season has gone on, Mayer has gotten better and better and better, especially as a blocker. So to be able to find somebody that gives you the ability to block the way Mayer did, Gentry might be a better blocker than Mayer. He's nowhere near the type of receiver. But the reason why I'm worried, and I mentioned this last week when Mayer popped up on the injury report, because I literally said on the show, this injury scares the hell out of me, because anytime you're dealing with a toe injury. And when it pops up and, talking to the people that I did, I was very, very concerned about what could potentially happen with the Raiders' rookie tight end out of Notre Dame. Mayer could be done for the rest of the season. From what I understand right now, it's a situation where because the Raiders are still playoff hopes alive, they win these next 2 games, and they're going to have a shot to get in. If the season was over, Mayer's season would also be over. He hasn't practiced at all this week. I don't anticipate that he's going to be able to go out there and play. I mean, all the reports, everybody that I talked to, with him not practicing on Wednesday, him not practicing on Thursday, I am not going to hold my breath and expect to see Mayer at all for the remainder of the year. If the Raiders make the playoffs, maybe then and only then. But trying to replace Mayer, I mean, I'm not going to look at Austin Hooper. I'm not going to look at Zach Gentry at trying to replace the production that Mayer was able to do. From a blocking standpoint, sure, you can look at Gentry, you can look at Hooper, but from a ball-catching standpoint, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, you got to pick it up. Not saying that they're not playing well, but you got to pick up the slack. Hunter Renfrow's really got to pick it up. I mean, this season, he's got a drop rate of 22%. He has been a major disappointment. Trey Tucker, got to get him involved a little bit more. And then your running backs, they even need to step up. When you lose a player like Michael Mayer, everyone needs to step up. Coming up next here on the show, we're going to get into the Week 17 injury report. We're going to look at the Raiders side. We're going to look at the Colts side. But the reason why you probably clicked on this video is because there's a big-time update here around Josh Jacobs. If you're watching this before we go live for Thursday Night Football, I'm going to give you all of my picks in just a second. But if you don't already know, I don't know how else I could tell you. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. All you got to do is pick 2+ players, choose more or less. And if you want to get started, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Quick withdrawals, easy game plan, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So my picks for tonight's game are, I'm going to go Trevor Siemian, 1 touchdown. If he throws 1 passing touchdown today, I get that one. Joe Flacco, 21.5 pass completions. The reason why I'm going with that is since he's been a starter in Cleveland 3 straight games, over 22 completions. Breece Hall, give me the less on 48.5 rushing yards. Garrett Wilson, give me the more on the 47.5 receiving yards. I'm also trying to show y'all that I put in 4 picks, and I put it down for 5 to win 25. So you can also, instead of going for broke all the time, I also put it as a flex play. So usually you can go 4 picks, and this would have been at $5. I would have had a chance to win $50. This time, though, I decided to go a little bit of a safer route, and if I hit all 4, I will make $25. However, if 3 out of these 4 hit, well, then I'll make $8. And I know it's not a lot of money, but guess what? If I can still make a little bit after a little bit of a brutal week during the holidays, I'm on board for it. It's why I like Prize Picks. I think they give you a lot of flexibility. You got a lot of fun watching. So not only you could see my live reactions tonight when we go live here on the Raiders Report for Thursday Night Football, but you're also going to have a shot to win some money. So go with my picks or fade them at prizepicks.com/CLNS. All right, before we get into Jacobs, let's go to Jermaine Eluemunor. So I was talking to Jermaine, on the day after Christmas, and I was kind of asking him, like, hey, man, like, how you feeling? He told me that he was really, really close to suffering a season-ending injury. Essentially what happened was he was forced to leave the game early, and because he's worked so hard in the gym in terms of getting stronger, trying to improve that flexibility, he flat out told me, he's like, if I wasn't as strong and as flexible as what I am right now, my season would be over with a knee injury. The good news is he expects to be able to play at right tackle this upcoming week, which is a big-time boost for this Raiders team, because with him unable to go, or if he would be unable to go, you're probably going to have Thayer Munford in the very interesting spot there. However, Kolton Miller also still really battling that shoulder injury, was a limited participant, but I mean, I know the Raiders have been very impressed with Thayer, and they believe that 100% healthy Thayer Munford is better than the current Kolton Miller because of how banged up Miller was. I mean, he's right now your emergency tackle. That's how banged up that shoulder is. So if you were to ask me, all right, Mitch, give me your projection for the offensive line against the Colts, this is it. Thayer Munford's going to get the start at left tackle. Dylan Parham is going to get the start at left guard. Andre James at center. Greg Van Roten at right guard. Jermaine Eluemunor at right tackle. I'm telling y'all right now, If the Raiders are going to beat Indianapolis, it's going to be because of these 5 guys here opening up running lanes for Zamir White. And I'll tell you whether or not Jacobs is playing. But looking at that offensive line, what's your confidence level in the Raiders' O-line this week up against the Indianapolis Colts, up against the Raiders' 2021 defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley? Scale it for me, 1 to 10. 1, you're not confident. All 10, you have no doubt about this Raiders offensive line. My confidence level in this line right now as it stands is a 7. I thought they played phenomenal football considering all the injuries that they sustained last week against Kansas City. I mean, it's been next man up. You got to give a lot of credit to Carmen Brasillo. You got to give a lot of credit to Antonio Pierce. Got to give a lot of credit to this entire staff of having that offensive line ready to go considering how many different players have played in different situations. But based off of how this line has played the entire season, I am going to show some confidence in a unit that by every single metric is a top 12 offensive line. So this Week 17 matchup, Jets-Browns, we're going to be live here on the Raiders Report. And to be honest with you, this game doesn't really have any playoff implications for the Silver and Black. I mean, the Browns have already got 10 wins. Raiders, the highest they can get is 9. So to be honest, this game from a playoff standpoint doesn't really matter all that much. The only thing that could technically benefit, like, you should root for the Jets tonight to beat the Cleveland Browns in an area where if there's a 3-way or more tiebreaker that comes down to a few teams in the AFC, you want to have a tiebreaker comes down to record next to common opponents. For that reason, you probably should root for the Jets tonight, but at the end of the day, this game does not have all that much implications. From an injury report standpoint, don't worry, we're about to get into it here with Josh Jacobs. Jacob Bobenmoyer practicing full, long snapper. Nobody's too worried about him. Maxx Crosby, Jermaine Eluemunor, both expected to play. Both are going to play, barring any major setback. Jesper Horsted, he got placed on IR. We'll talk about Jacobs here in 1 second. Andre James, limited, going to play. Malcolm Kuntz, limited, expected to play. Michael Mayer did not participate in practice today. He ain't playing this week. And then you got Kolton Miller and DJ Turner, both limited, but both expected to play. And DJ Turner, even though he hasn't added much from a receiver standpoint, you go look at a lot of the numbers he's been putting up as a gunner on special teams. He might find himself on a roster, even a Raiders roster, as a gunner. Kind of reminds me of the way Dalen Levitt used to play a few years ago for the Silver and Black. Okay, let's talk about him. Josh Jacobs did not practice, still dealing with a quad injury, was unable to go against Kansas City, was unable to go against the Los Angeles Chargers. But I got some good news here. According to a source close to me, the Raiders are hopeful and the Raiders expect Josh Jacobs to play on Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts unless he suffers a setback. So last week, which really hindered him, and again, the Raiders were hoping Jacobs was going to be able to play last week, but because he got the flu, he wasn't able to get the, we'll call it, treatment that the Raiders would have been able to give it to him because he was sick, and also they didn't want him around a lot of his teammates because of how sick he truly, truly was. Now, Zamir White was able to show last week when he had 22 carries, 145 yards, that you put him in a situation, you should have some confidence in him. I mean, Zamir White reminded me of like my old baseball days where, you know, sometimes you look at a pinch hitter and you're like, this guy's struggling, but you got to get into that rhythm. Zamir White, as that game went on, got more and more into a rhythm. I will admit this, if Jacobs is healthy and he's ready to go, I expect him to get the lion's share of the carries, but I also do expect Zamir White to get some touches. I mean, you go back and you look at some of those other games where it's like 90% of the touches are going to number 8, which a fully healthy Josh Jacobs is the route that you should go. However, if Jacobs, let's say, is at a 65, 70% health, and then you got Zamir White, who's 100% healthy coming off a career game, there is going to be something to be said. But if Jacobs is expected to be out there, I expect him to play. The Raiders are expecting him to play. I expect to see, let's say, a 65% work share for Josh Jacobs, 40% then to Zamir White, and then the other I did that math wrong. 60 for Jacobs, 35 for Zamir, 5 for the rest of the workload. Chugs is looking at me. He's like, luckily this isn't the math report. You're right. And coming up next here, we're not going to look at math, but we're going to look at the future here a little bit because there's that old saying, keep your friends close, but you got to keep your enemies closer. And I'll admit, I don't like looking too far in advance, but I am hopeful and I'm confident that this Raiders team is going to be able to beat the Indianapolis Colts. And if they take care of business on New Year's Eve, which also is Chuck's birthday, so we'll have to do something special for that, then you got the Denver Broncos, okay? January 7th, which actually is my mother's birthday, and the Denver Broncos have benched Russell Wilson. At some point next week, I'll probably have to talk about Wilson potentially coming to the Raiders, because if you look at a lot of odd makers out there, the Raiders are in the top 5 for a chance to get Wilson, because it is expected, and it's been reported that the Denver Broncos are going to cut Russell Wilson. So one of the things that, by Diana Rossini, we don't have the picture though this time, one of the things that we're going to have to talk about next week is, would you just sign Russell Wilson? Do you trade for Justin Fields, or do you trade up a boatload of picks to try to get up and get your franchise quarterback in the draft? Whether you like to hear it or not, I will talk about it next week here on the show. But with Russell Wilson getting benched, oh man, it's Stiddy time. I laugh a little bit because last season, Derek Carr got benched in Week 17. Jarrett Stidham showed up, and he played a pretty solid game, threw for 365 yards. Sure, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs 37-34. No, not Chiefs. They lost to the 49ers in Week 17. But Stidham now is going to get an opportunity. Jeremy just whispered in my ear a revenge game, and Stidham, who signed a 2-year, $10 million contract, is going to get an opportunity to have a little bit of a revenge game. And I can never remember who Stidham is married to, but Alex follows her on Instagram, and I know she's going to be excited about it. So we'll have to see what happens Week 18 to make sure that you guys never miss anything going on around the Raiders. Yesterday, I had the day off. I got to spend some time with my friends, my family, Alex's friends and family, I guess I should say. They're my friends and family now, too. But I didn't get to update as much as I would have on a normal day. But at the end of the day, man, it's the holidays. I want to have a good time tonight. So if you want to turn up here on the Raiders Report, make sure you tune in. We're going to be going live 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific here on the Raiders Report. Tune in. Jets, Browns, Thursday Night Football. It's going to get litty.